A system introduced by the upper classes to control the rest of society.
Respect for those at the top of the heap.
The kind of jobs that people do.
Lack of respect for those at the bottom.
If you get your income by working, or whether you're an exploiter.
Pigeon-hole.
Pigeon-holing people. Pigeon-holes us.
The lower, middle and upper classes.
A few months ago, I came back to England, having lived in the desert for 3 years. When I got back, I felt like an alien. Everyone was obsessed with buying things. I was horrified by how much consumerism and the media were controlling people's minds, tempting them like a game show host with glittering prizes of glamour, status and respect.
It does mean it's time for you to play our text game on your mobiles at home. One of you watching right now will win £1,000. This is the number you need to call.
And the government were using the threat of terrorism and social unrest to justify control. I decided to read George Orwell's 1984 because I thought Big Brother, whoever he might be, had slyly crept up on us. There are worrying parallels between 1984 and today. For example, how class is used to keep people in their place. To quote 1984, the party taught that the proles were natural inferiors who must be kept in subjection like animals. Isn't that happening today? I picked up Orwell's Road to Wigan Pier and found that in 1936 he wrote that England was the most class-ridden country under the sun. When I arrived back, I heard that Tony Blair had said that Britain is now a classless society, which surprised me, because coming back to it, the class system was more glaringly obvious to me than it had ever been before. My fascination with this set me off on a journey to find out.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please be upstanding to receive His Worship the Mayor, Councillor Hilton, and the Mayoress, Mrs Hilton. Thank you.
Hello, pleased to meet you. Welcome to the parlour. I think since the George Orwell book was written, I think the class system, in my opinion, anyway, there is none.
I agree with George Orwell.
Yeah.
Certainly from my travels around and about, I would say that this country has got worse, if not better. Not that I agree with it.
Tell me how you think class affects people's personal, professional and social relationships.
People judge individuals by virtue of what their father did, or what sort of a house they live in, or what postcode they have. I am sick to death of local councils treating people differently according to how powerful they are, and that's all class is about, power.
I can remember back to my own experience at school. Music was my best subject, but I couldn't have continued with it as a main subject for study unless I'd have done private lessons, and of course my parents weren't able to afford it.
When my children were coming up to go into secondary school, they were going to go to the school I went to, which was a school my parents thought, this will raise Cynthia out of the working classes or the middle classes and give her a good education. It was what was then a direct grant school, but it's a private school now.
My father came from a very poor area of Liverpool, and he was very bright. So his parents couldn't afford to send him to university, so he got 2 scholarships and studied medicine at university. Academically, he always felt very, very comfortable, but socially, because of his origins, the class he came from, he was very, very uncomfortable.
As someone who unfortunately was found at 2 days old on a railway station, I came to Wigan and I was adopted by 2 beautiful people, and I don't think they had the classes. My father was as good as anyone, and he knew that, and that was the way I was brought up.
Well, if you're a member of the aristocracy and you end up being divorced and bringing your kids up, them kids are seen as very different to the single mother who lives on a council estate in Bradford.
The underclass discourse was trying to do the same kind of thing. It was stigmatising, pathologising the poorest of the poor and the big working class estates where there were no jobs, where there was no facilities, and it was saying that actually you're in this situation not because of society's problems, not because of unemployment, but because of your moral failings.
I was brought up by a single parent who never worked. I've never had a job. I was a teenage mother. I've lived homeless.
The way the benefits are these days, there shouldn't be anybody on the breadline. I mean, there are people on the breadline because people can't manage their money.
I know what it's like to basically feel what it's like to be hungry, and I know what it's like to feel alone.
Parents have brought me up with what you'd probably consider middle-class values, such as promoting education.
It doesn't matter how much education I have, it doesn't matter what chances are thrown in my way, I still will not be regarded as the same ilk as the people that I'm mixing with.
I think it does upset people who feel they haven't risen to that level, and people do feel a bit inferior, and this is what I think they shouldn't do. They should not feel inferior, because they're not inferior. The young lady who cleans the office has a job to do, and her job is just as important as a managing director.
A manager of a company wouldn't exactly associate with the cleaner of that building.
My mother was horrified when I first came to live here, and my father would turn in his grave. When I was married many years ago to my first husband and considering divorce, my home was attached to my husband, and it never occurred to me to leave, to go, because if I'd been rehoused in a council house then it would have been on a very rough estate, and my children were still going to the rather posh school that I went to, and it just never crossed my mind to go and have them go from one world to the other.
Because I have a very strong northern accent, a Wigan accent, I've been in places where I've spoken and people look at me as though they've just trod into something.
The class is the most important determining feature in people's lives. From the moment you're born to the moment you die, everything that you do will in some senses be shaped by class.
I would consider myself working class.
So middle class.
The underclass.
Working class.
Middle class.
The middle.
We are the drones, we are the people that work.
So they all know that class is alive and well, and they all know where they fit into it. And since everyone I spoke to disliked and disagreed with the class system, why are people colluding with it so willingly? What I want to know is, are people aware that we refer to class unconsciously all the time in a divisive way? We're classist in our language. And when I say language, I'm not talking about our accents. I'm talking about the insidious way we put each other down in our everyday conversations. I think we need to become conscious that this is harmful, in the same way that we now accept racist and sexist references are harmful. When I first turned on the TV after I got back, I couldn't believe the number of detrimental references to the lower classes, often by the lower classes, that everybody seemed to find hilarious.
So should we try some nice alliteration? How about that?
Some what?
Alliteration.
If I knew what it was, love, I'd have a go.
Well, this is the difficulty, isn't it? Because I make jokes like that as well sometimes, and sometimes get shot down with flames for it.
But why do you?
Why do I? Why do I get shot down in flames? Because people see it as patronising. And it's all right for us, it's all right for the people who are that class to do it, but let anybody outside that class do it.